The blood-red sun dipped low over the horizon as Olivia Vale watched her husband's coffin being lowered into the hard Wyoming soil. Her heart as empty as the stretching plains that surrounded the small cemetery outside Bitter Creek. The year was 1878, and at 26 years old, Olivia found herself a widow with nothing but debts and sorrow to her name. Mrs. Vale. A voice like gravel spoke behind her as the last of the mourners departed, leaving her alone with her grief. "I'm afraid we have business to discuss." She turned to face Mr. Harmon, her late husband's creditor, a man whose belly strained against his waistcoat as severely as his patience had worn thin with Thomas Vale's many promises to repay what he had borrowed. "My husband is barely cold in the ground," Olivia said, clutching her black shawl tighter around her shoulders, "and his debts are still warm in my ledger." Harmon produced a folded document from his coat pocket. "Your husband borrowed against everything you own, the house, the land." "It's all forfeit. I'll find work," Olivia said, her voice stronger than she felt. Harmon's laugh was cruel. "In Bitter Creek, for a woman. Besides, what your husband owed me is far more than you could earn in years." "Then what would you have me do?" The question fell from her lips like a stone. "I've arranged for you to work off the debt at the Golden Spike. 3 years should cover it." The Golden Spike was the largest saloon in Bitter Creek, known for its gambling, its whiskey, and the women who served both. Olivia's blood ran cold. "As what?" she asked, though she already knew. "As whatever Mr. Dawson requires," Harmon replied. "A serving girl to start, perhaps more if necessary." "This is indentured servitude," Olivia said. "It's not legal, it's a contract to settle a debt, perfectly legal." Harmon extended the paper toward her. "Sign it, or I'll have the sheriff seize what little you have left and throw you in debtor's prison." With a hand that trembled more from rage than fear, Olivia took the quill he offered. 2 months later, Olivia's hands were raw from washing glasses, her feet ached from hours of standing, and her ears rang with the cacophony of drunken voices and tinny piano music that filled the Golden Spike every night. She had managed to avoid the fate of the upstairs girls so far, but Mr. Dawson's patience with her refusals was wearing thin. It was on a particularly busy evening when Ethan Quinn rode into town. The doors of the Golden Spike swung open, and he entered like he owned nothing and nowhere, yet walked with the confidence of a man who could claim anything he wanted. His eyes, green as sage after spring rain, surveyed the room and landed on Olivia as she delivered drinks to a table of miners. "What can I get you?" she asked when she approached his table, not meeting his gaze. "Information," he replied, his voice low and steady. "I'm looking for work and a place to stay." Something in his tone made her look up. He wasn't like the usual cowboys who passed through. There was a quietness to him, an intensity that didn't demand attention but commanded it nonetheless. "Old Man Wilkes is hiring hands at his ranch 5 miles north," she said. "As for lodging, there are rooms above the general store." He nodded, studying her with an unsettling perception. "And you, are you working here by choice?" The question caught her off guard. "That's not your concern, mister." His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. "Ethan Quinn," he offered. "And sometimes making things my concern is a habit I can't shake." Before she could respond, Dawson's voice boomed from across the room. "Olivia, Table 6 needs service, not conversation." Ethan Quinn's eyes narrowed at the tone, but he said nothing as she hurried away. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a regular at the Golden Spike. He'd secured work at Wilkes Ranch and would come into town most evenings, always sitting at the same table, always watching Olivia with those thoughtful eyes. He rarely drank more than 1 whiskey, and unlike other patrons, he never touched the girls, never gambled away his earnings. One evening, as a thunderstorm raged outside, the saloon was unusually empty. Olivia was wiping down tables when Ethan approached her. "May I ask you something personal, Mrs. Vale?" She hesitated, then nodded, glancing to ensure Dawson wasn't watching. "How did you come to be here?" Olivia considered deflecting but found herself too weary to lie. "My husband died owing money to the wrong people. I'm working off his debt." "Against your will," she looked away. "I signed a contract. Under duress," he stated rather than asked. A crash of thunder punctuated the silence between them. "Why do you care, Mr. Quinn?" "Because no one should be bound by chains they didn't forge themselves." he said simply, as if stating an obvious truth. Before she could respond, the doors burst open, and a group of cowboys, soaked and rowdy, filled the room with their noise. The moment was lost, but his words stayed with her long after he'd gone. It was 2 nights later when everything changed. Olivia was clearing a table when one of the regular gamblers, flush with winnings and whiskey, grabbed her wrist. "Come upstairs with me, pretty widow," he slurred, his fingers digging into her flesh. "Let go," Olivia said firmly, trying to pull away. "I've been patient," he growled. "Dawson says you'll warm up eventually. I'm tired of waiting." As she struggled, the man rose, towering over her. Then suddenly, he was no longer holding her wrist but clutching his own hand in pain. Ethan Quinn stood between them, his expression calm but his eyes dangerous. "The lady said no," Ethan said quietly. "She ain't no lady," the gambler spat. "She's property, Dawson's property." The words hit Olivia like a physical blow, but Ethan didn't flinch. "No person is property. Now I suggest you take your winnings and leave before you lose more than just a hand of cards." For a moment, it seemed the gambler might fight, but something in Ethan's stance made him reconsider. He collected his money and stumbled out, muttering curses. Dawson emerged from behind the bar, his face flushed with anger. "Quinn, you're costing me business. Bill him for my drinks then," Ethan replied coolly, "and add Mrs. Vale's contract to my tab." The room fell silent. Olivia stared at him, unable to comprehend what he was suggesting. Dawson laughed. "Her debt is substantial. Name your price." The saloon keeper's eyes narrowed. $2,000. It was an outrageous sum, more than a cowboy could earn in years. Olivia's heart sank. But Ethan didn't balk. "I'll have it for you tomorrow." "Mr. Quinn," Olivia began when they were alone outside the saloon later that night, the stars bright above them. "You can't possibly—" "I can," he interrupted gently, "and I will." "Why?" The question escaped her before she could stop it. "You don't know me." His gaze was steady on hers. "I know enough. I know you deserve better than this. I can't repay such a sum. I'm not asking you to." He looked up at the sky. "There's a small cabin on the north section of Wilkes' property. He's letting me use it. It's nothing grand, but it's private. You'd be safe there while you figure out what you want to do next." "What I want." Olivia echoed, the words foreign on her tongue after months of having no choices at all. "Yes," Ethan said, "your life should be your own to decide." The next day, true to his word, Ethan returned to the Golden Spike with a leather pouch heavy with gold coins. Olivia watched from the corner as he placed it on the bar before Dawson. $2,000, Ethan said, "for Mrs. Vale's contract." Dawson counted the money carefully, his expression sour. Then he reached beneath the bar and produced the document, sliding it across to Ethan. "She's your problem now," Dawson said with a sneer. Ethan took the contract and turned to where Olivia stood frozen. He held it up for her to see, then deliberately tore it in half and then in quarters until it was nothing but scraps. "No," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "She's her own person now." The ride to Wilkes Ranch was quiet, the Wyoming landscape stretching vast around them. Olivia rode behind Ethan on his horse, her few belongings tied in a bundle. She was acutely aware of his broad back, the strength in his arms as he guided the horse across the uneven terrain. "Why did you really do it?" she asked finally, her voice almost lost in the wind. $2,000 is a fortune. Ethan was silent for so long she thought he might not answer. "I had a sister," he said finally. "After our parents died, she married young to a man who promised to care for her. He was cruel. When he died, his debts nearly destroyed her. No one helped her." "I'm sorry," Olivia said softly. "Don't be. Mary's fine now. She owns a dress shop in Denver." He paused. "But I made a promise that if I ever saw someone in a similar situation, I wouldn't just ride past." Still $2,000. He chuckled, a warm sound that seemed to vibrate through her. "I didn't spend years panning for gold in California to die with it. Money's just a tool, Mrs. Vale." "Olivia," she corrected him. "Please call me Olivia." The cabin was small but sturdy, with a stone fireplace and windows that faced east to catch the morning sun. It had 2 rooms, a main living area with a kitchen, and a small bedroom. Ethan had clearly prepared for her arrival. There was fresh bedding, food in the cupboards, and wildflowers in a jar on the table. "I'll sleep in the barn," he said, placing her bundle on the bed. "Old man Wilkes is expecting me for the evening shift. There's stew in the pot if you're hungry." "Mr. Quinn, Ethan," Olivia said, stopping him before he could leave. I don't know how to thank you. His smile was gentle. Live your life, Olivia, that's thanks enough. In the days that followed, Olivia found a rhythm to her new existence. She kept the cabin, cooked meals, and began a small garden in the patch of earth beside the door. Ethan worked long hours with the cattle, often returning exhausted but always taking time to share supper with her and listen as she spoke of her day. They were careful with each other, maintaining a respectful distance despite sharing such close quarters. But Olivia found herself watching him when he wasn't looking the way the sun had burnished his skin. How his hands, though calloused from work, moved with surprising grace. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, Ethan broke their comfortable silence. Wilkes mentioned the school in town is looking for a teacher, he said. The last one left to get married. I remembered you saying you taught children before you were married. Olivia looked at him in surprise. You remembered that? His eyes, reflecting the dying sun, met hers. I remember everything you tell me. The simple statement stirred something in her chest. Do you think they would hire me? A widow with no references? Wilkes is on the school board. He'd vouch for you. Hope, a feeling she'd almost forgotten, bloomed within her. I would like that, she said softly, to teach again. The school board, comprised of Wilkes and 3 other town elders, met Olivia the following week. Despite initial reservations about hiring a woman with her background, Wilkes' endorsement and her clear knowledge of the subjects to be taught won them over. She would start when the new term began in 2 weeks. I got the position, she told Ethan that evening, unable to keep the excitement from her voice as she entered the cabin. He looked up from where he was mending a bridle, his face lighting up with her news. I never doubted it. Impulsively, she crossed to him and embraced him. For a moment, he stiffened in surprise, then his arms came around her, strong and secure. Olivia became acutely aware of how close they were, of the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. She pulled back, flustered. I'm sorry I don't be, he said, his voice rougher than usual. He cleared his throat. This calls for celebration. I've been saving a bottle of wine, not the fancy kind, but it'll do. As they shared the wine and a special supper she prepared, Olivia felt something shift between them, a new awareness, a current of possibility. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. Olivia prepared lessons and acquainted herself with the schoolhouse, a simple one-room building on the edge of town. Ethan helped her clean and repair it on his days off, building new shelves for books and fixing the leaky roof. Working alongside him, Olivia found herself laughing more than she had in years. Ethan had a quiet wit and a way of looking at the world that made even ordinary moments seem special. More than once, she caught him watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. The night before her first day of teaching, Olivia was too nervous to sleep. She sat by the fire going through her lesson plans yet again when Ethan returned from his evening rounds. Still awake? He asked, hanging his hat on the peg by the door. I can't seem to settle, she admitted. What if I fail? He sat across from her, the firelight casting shadows across his features. You won't. How can you be so sure? Because I've seen your strength, Olivia. You survived loss, cruelty, and servitude with your dignity intact. Teaching a dozen children their letters will be simple by comparison. She smiled despite her nerves. When you say it like that, I almost believe it. Believe it, he said, reaching across to squeeze her hand briefly. The children of Bitter Creek are lucky to have you. His confidence in her was like a balm to her anxiety. As he rose to retire to the barn for the night, Olivia made a decision. Ethan, she called softly. He turned at the door. With my teaching salary, I could afford a small place in town. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes dimmed. Of course, I'll help you look for somewhere suitable. That's not, she began, then took a breath. I don't want to leave. Now his brows drew together in confusion. I don't understand, this cabin, it's become home to me. More than that, you've become. She struggled to find the right words. Important to me, the silence stretched between them, taut with unspoken feelings. Olivia, he said finally, her name almost a sigh on his lips. I freed you so you could make your own choices, not so you would feel obligated to me. This is my choice, she said firmly, rising to stand before him. Unless you want me to go, his hand rose to touch her cheek, so gently it was like the brush of a feather. I have wanted you to stay since the moment I first saw you, he confessed, his voice low and filled with emotion. But I needed you to want it too, freely, not out of gratitude or obligation. It's not gratitude I feel when I look at you, Olivia whispered, covering his hand with hers. The kiss, when it came, was both tender and fierce, a culmination of weeks of growing feelings and restrained desire. His arms encircled her, drawing her closer, and Olivia felt as though she was finally, truly home. Olivia's first day as the schoolteacher of Bitter Creek was a success. The children, ranging from 6 to 14 years old, were eager to learn and quick to warm to their new teacher. When she returned to the cabin that evening, Ethan had prepared dinner, a simple meal, but the gesture touched her deeply. As autumn turned the landscape golden, Olivia and Ethan settled into a new rhythm. They still maintained separate sleeping quarters, he in the barn, she in the cabin, but their evenings were spent together, talking, reading, or simply enjoying each other's company. Their kisses grew more passionate, their touches more lingering, but Ethan never pushed for more, respecting her boundaries and the propriety she still held dear. It was Olivia who raised the subject of their future one crisp October evening as they walked along the creek that bordered Wilkes' property. "People are talking," she said, her arm linked through his, "about us living together." Ethan's stride didn't falter. "Does that bother you?" She considered the question. "Not for my sake, but as the school teacher I should be above reproach, and, he prompted gently when she hesitated. Olivia stopped, turning to face him. "And I want more than stolen kisses and evenings by the fire. I want a life with you, Ethan, a real life." The hope that blazed in his eyes took her breath away. "Are you asking me to marry you, Olivia Vale?" A laugh bubbled from her throat. "I suppose I am. Is that too forward of me?" Instead of answering, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her with such tenderness it brought tears to her eyes. "I've been carrying this for weeks," he said when they parted, reaching into his pocket to produce a small ring with a single pearl. "Waiting for the right moment. It seems you found it before I did." "Is that a yes?" she asked, smiling through her tears. His answering smile was radiant. "Yes, Olivia. 1,000 times yes." They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in Bitter Creek, with old man Wilkes giving the bride away and the schoolchildren throwing flower petals as they emerged as husband and wife. The town, which had initially viewed their relationship with suspicion, embraced the romance of their story, the cowboy who had saved the widow from servitude, only to win her heart. As winter blanketed Wyoming in snow, Ethan and Olivia's cabin became a true home. They added a room in anticipation of a family they both hoped for, and Ethan took on more responsibilities at the ranch, with Wilkes hinting that he might one day inherit the foreman's position. Olivia continued teaching, her classroom growing as word spread of her skill and dedication. In the evenings, she would return to find Ethan waiting, their love deepening with each passing day. It was on a spring morning in 1880, as dawn broke over the eastern hills, that Olivia woke with a certainty that would change their lives again. "Ethan," she whispered, turning in his embrace to face him. His eyes opened slowly, still heavy with sleep. "I'm with child." The joy that transformed his features was something she would remember for the rest of her life. He gathered her close, his hand splayed protectively over her still flat stomach. "A child," he repeated, wonder in his voice. "Our child." As her pregnancy progressed, Olivia continued teaching until the school board insisted she take rest for the last months. The women of Bitter Creek, who had once whispered about her past, now visited regularly, bringing gifts for the baby and advice for the mother-to-be. In December, as snow fell thick outside their window, Olivia gave birth to a son they named Thomas Wilkes Quinn, honoring both her first husband and the man who had become like a father to them both. "He's perfect," Ethan said, cradling his son with hands that trembled slightly. Just like his mother. Olivia, exhausted but radiant, watched the man she loved holding the child they had created. "I never thought I could be this happy again," she admitted. "After Thomas died, I thought that part of my life was over." Ethan sat beside her, their son sleeping peacefully between them. "Life has a way of surprising us," he said, leaning to kiss her forehead. "Just when we think the story's ended, a new chapter begins." By the time little Thomas, called Tom by everyone but his mother, was 2, Olivia was back teaching, though now she brought her son with her. The children adored their teacher's little boy, and he thrived in the schoolroom environment, showing an early love of books that made Olivia's heart swell with pride. Ethan had indeed become foreman of Wilkes Ranch, and with the old man's health failing, they all knew it wouldn't be long before more changes came. It happened on a summer evening in 1883. Wilkes called them to his bedside, his once robust frame now withered with age and illness. "I've no family left," he told them, his voice weak but his mind still sharp. "No one to leave this land to, except you two." Ethan and Olivia exchanged shocked glances. "Sir, we can't accept," Ethan began, but Wilkes raised a hand to silence him. "You've been more a son to me than my own ever was," the old rancher said. "And you, Olivia, have brought life back to this community. The ranch is yours when I'm gone. The papers are drawn up." He passed a month later, surrounded by those who had become his family. The town mourned, but life continued, as it always does in places where nature dictates the rhythm of existence. The Wilkes Ranch became the Quinn Ranch, and under Ethan and Olivia's care, it flourished. They built a larger house near where their cabin had stood, but kept the original structure as a reminder of where their journey together had begun. Their family grew with the addition of a daughter, Emma, born in the spring of 1884. Tom, now 4, took his role as big brother seriously, showing Emma his favorite spots on the ranch and reading to her from his picture books. Olivia continued teaching until the school grew large enough to need a full-time teacher, at which point she focused on raising her children and helping Ethan manage the ranch. They hired hands, many of them men down on their luck whom Ethan gave a chance, just as Wilkes had once done for him. In 1888, 10 years after Ethan had torn up Olivia's contract in the Golden Spike, they hosted a celebration at the ranch. The saloon was long gone, replaced by a respectable hotel, and Bitter Creek had grown into a proper town with a mayor and a newspaper. As twilight fell, Ethan found Olivia standing alone on the porch, watching their guests mingle in the yard where tables had been set up for the feast. "What are you thinking about so seriously?" he asked, slipping his arm around her waist. She leaned into him, fitting against his side as perfectly as she had a decade ago. "I was thinking about how different my life would be if you hadn't ridden into Bitter Creek that day." His arm tightened around her. "I don't like to think about that." "Nor do I," she admitted. "But it makes me all the more grateful for what we have." She turned in his embrace to face him. "I love you, Ethan Quinn, more today than yesterday and less than I will tomorrow." His kiss was as fervent as it had been the first time. When they parted, breathless, their foreheads touching, he whispered, "And I love you, Olivia Quinn, until the stars fall from the sky." They rejoined their guests hand in hand, moving among friends and neighbors who had witnessed their journey from its unlikely beginning. Tom and Emma darted between the tables, playing with the other children, their laughter a testament to the joy that filled their home. As night deepened and lanterns cast a golden glow over the gathering, Ethan raised a toast to his wife, the teacher who had taught him what it truly meant to love, and to the life they had built together on the wild Wyoming plains. Their story, which had begun with loss and servitude, had transformed into one of freedom, choice, and enduring love, a reminder that even in the harshest landscapes, the most beautiful things can grow when nurtured with care and courage. Years later, when Tom was grown and preparing to leave for university in Denver, he asked his parents about how they met. Sitting before the fire in the home they had built together, Ethan and Olivia shared their tale, not hiding the difficulties but emphasizing the strength they had found in each other. "So you bought Mother's contract and destroyed it?" Tom asked, his young face serious, "without knowing her." "Sometimes," Ethan said, his hand finding Olivia's as it had countless times over the years. "You don't need to know everything about a person to know they deserve freedom." "And sometimes," Olivia added, squeezing her husband's hand, "the bravest thing you can do is accept help when it's offered and trust that there are good people in this world." Their love had not only endured but flourished, growing deeper roots with each passing season. From the widow forced into servitude and the cowboy who had seen her worth, they had forged a life rich with purpose, joy, and the quiet certainty that comes from facing the world side by side. And in Bitter Creek, Wyoming, their story became a legend, a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of a woman's will, and the transformative nature of love freely given and received.